I'm in a two-person inflatable kayak, and this is the first time I've ever done it with one person, and what I found out is I have a lot more leg room. I can actually get my legs flat inside the kayak since I'm alone. I planned this today mainly because it was a quiet day where the wind is barely moving, because when the wind is moving it's a real battle to go into it. So this island mainly has mangrove roots with no place you can stand on. It's sort of sitting on a sandbar. This is the, if I can find it here, this is the drawbridge going to the Dunedin Causeway, which starts there and continues on until reaching Honeymoon Island. So right now I'm just floating because it takes two hands to paddle and at least one hand to do a video shot. So maybe next I'll try to get to the next island, but to do that I have to cross a motorboat passway, which has a lot of waves. So I'll just so I came from a beach over this direction, and this is Dunedin, Florida. And over this way, if I can line it up, I'm at the turn. So this way is Ozona, so the island I'm going around here, and in this direction is Ozona, Florida, with, as typical, a lot of expensive homes with a water view. White poles in the water are a passageway for boats that's deeper. Otherwise, this is St. Joseph Sound, and it's fairly shallow. Even though I'm out quite a ways, my paddle can hit the bottom. Woo! That was scary. Tilting. Anyway, you don't have much ballast in this thing, so if you lean, you really lean. I crossed through the lane of those poles after leaving the first island, and it was right after a boat went through which had a significant wake or a series of waves. At this point I can tell that it's a much greater distance to this first island than it appeared when I was, well, first, this would be the second island, but there's first in a series of 6 islands that go, that are part of St. Joseph Sound in this area. And so it's still quite a bit of paddling to get to the first of these 6 islands. Part of the illusion of how far away this island is, much further than it originally looks, is it's much larger than the first island I went past. So to get some perspective, this is a beach chair sitting on that island on the sandy shore of it. So it's considerably larger than the last one, which is just a little bit of mangrove trees growing on a sandbar. This one actually has solid ground on it. And so the next one which looks fairly close, as actually has, to me, a little bit of aerial haze as I'm looking at it, so I'm thinking this is much further away than it looks. Rather, in the string of 6 islands, I've reached the second of those 2 islands. It looks like a table, probably for cleaning off fish or something. The next island looks even further away. So here is the drawbridge. It's kind of hard to zoom when your boat keeps moving, but perhaps a osprey nest or eagle nest. So I've been out for about almost 50 minutes. My clock measurements are correct. And that's the first of the 6 islands in this string. Of the string of 6 islands, this is the 3rd. Now, I'm pausing here because there appears to be a lot of cormorants and some pelicans at the beach, and I think they'll probably go away, fly away, or paddle away when I get a little closer. I don't know what this is. Obviously a man-made structure, and there's a lot of buoys around this island, so there's probably shallow waters. So anyway, I'll maybe continue this as I get a little closer. So these are the ones that haven't flown away since I got closer. So the warning buoys were not about shallow water, it was caution nesting birds. And you know, you're not supposed to be there. So I was as close as I should have been, maybe closer than I should have been. But that's what all those buoys were about. Bird nesting site. In the string of 6 islands that I've seen in St. Joseph Sound, this is island number 4. Like a couple gulls there at the end, nothing like the bird nesting site, which is the island 3. And there it is. Okay. Again, not easy to zoom when your boat keeps moving and rocking. I will say that the water between Island 3 and 4 was a lot more choppy. Maybe that's because the wind is picking up. To me, this trip looked impossibly long from the start. And yet it's barely an hour and a half since I started paddling. Maybe an hour 35 since I started paddling. Okay, this is Island 5 of the string of 6 islands, and I had to get pretty close to read this sign, which says no pets on island. So there's one fisherman on the island, at least on the other side, and then there's these cormorants standing guard here. And I just sort of bottomed out here. I'm going to have to push myself away to get out of here. This has taken me an hour and 50 minutes, and from here I can see 6 of Island 6 in the distance. Can I make it before my arms give out? Anyway, let's better cut this off now. I've just rounded the end of the 6th island in this chain of 6 islands in St. Joseph Sound. And I will say that between Island 5 and 6, the water was the choppiest, the most difficult, and I'm actually being blown by the wind a little bit here. It started out as a very calm day, close to shore, but it's picked up a little bit. Now my weather app said it was about 5 miles per hour, and it's supposed to rise to like 6 or 7, I think, in the late afternoon. It's only early afternoon, and in the open water here, it's the airs, the breeze is a little bit more stiff. So just a few man-made features on this island, and there was, it looked like a chair, a beach chair sitting in the front of it. So anyway, this is 2 hours 15 minutes to get this far, and I'm not quite sure how I'm going to head back. I think I'm going to head towards the closest shore. There is a landmark of a water tower far away there that I recognize, and so I'm not lost, but I'm just way far out in St. Joseph Sound. So instead of returning by open water, I decided to head for the first visible shoreline that looked like a pretty much straight line. I headed there, sort of sighted in on a big house with white frame and big windows. Anyway, as I got closer, I recognized this pier, which is a closed pier at Crystal Beach. So that means I've got like 4 miles along the shore to navigate on the return trip. But it seemed like a safer route than going back across open water with no landmarks. So anyway, time elapsed. Let's see. We're approaching 3 hours, so I'll say it's been 2 hours 50 minutes since I started this adventure. 4 more miles yet to go. So most likely that was the last island I went around. I'm nearly 4 hours into my big trip here, and probably 3/4 of the way through. I still have, oh, hello, cormorant. I still have, by my count, maybe 1.5 miles left to go, which has not been going smoothly. It's been a lot into the wind. If I recognize my landmarks, this is probably the first island I went across in the line of 6. And then to the left of it is the drawbridge. So I'm going to have to go around Ozona here. And there's another island I just went past, which is behind me now. And anyway, not quite out of energy, but continuing this adventure. Of course, the coast is filled with, or lined with, expensive homes, all seeking this great water view. So as I'm rounding Ozona here, I'm starting to see some familiar landmarks. So in the distance, there's a water tower here, which is a familiar landmark for Dunedin. So I know I'm getting close to my home objective. And this is more of Ozona here with the waterfront homes. So I finished my monumental trip from these islands, and then I got back to the shore, got out of the kayak, and found I couldn't stand up. Every time I stood up, my leg would just collapse. My left leg would collapse. So 3 passersby who were sitting at the beach actually helped me stand up, carried me to a picnic bench, let me hobble here, and then dragged my kayak up and spent the last half hour resting and having a snack. So it's like 4 hours, 40 minutes for the trip, and then I still have to do a lot of cleanup here. Now, of course, the downside of having an inflatable kayak is that it doesn't have a rigid hull. It's subject to damage. So a day after the big trip to the 6 islands on St. Joseph Sound, I went back with a friend just to sort of do the middle of the trip. We got too close to an island that had some jagged rocks, and it put a big gash in the hull. Now I just laying it here, a ruler. It was right down the middle there, 4 inches long, and it was a fatal wound. We still had the side bladders so that we were able to paddle back to shore, but then we're left with this flaccid bottom. We were sort of sinking in the middle. Now these repair patches were not long enough. They were only like whatever that is for the underside one, like 3 inches probably. Let's see. Yeah, well, the underside one was 4 inches, but it didn't overlap the slash, the gash, which was a fraction over 4 inches. And so what I did is I took a 4-inch one with a 1 inch at one side, and then I cut the other 4-inch 1.5, and I butted the two ends together as closely as I could, and using the glue provided, these patches provided, which are specific for this type of vinyl, which stretches. So you need to go back to Sea Eagle to get patches, because the normal vinyl patches you get from anywhere else are not stretchable of the same proportion. So I butted them together, and then I patched the seam, and it has held air overnight. So hopefully it is once again seaworthy, or otherwise, if it's not, I'll get my wish to get a longer kayak on the next purchase. And the patching process did not go entirely smoothly. What happened was I just tried a patch, and it leaked around the edges. So it said you could sort of heat it with this hair dryer, not inflated, but you could heat it with this hair dryer and sort of redo the patch and to reactivate the glue. But anyway, I peeled it back past the halfway point, and then I put a bead of glue along the seam. Again, not while it's inflated. It's got to be flaccid because it'll expand when it's heated anyway. So then I put glue along there on both the patch and the seam, and then I took a piece of wood, actually it was like a paint stirrer, and I pressed it down into the seam against the tabletop and held it there for the, whatever it was, 2 to 4 minutes necessary for the glue to harden enough. And then I applied the glue to the underside of the patch and the boat hull, and then pressed it with a wider board for the prescribed amount of time. And then I peeled back this side enough to redo the glue there. And then when I did the patch over the seam between these two patch halves, I did the same thing. I put a line of glue along there, pressed the paint stirrer stick on end to get that seam well glued, and I used excessive glue because I wanted it to fill in any gaps so there wouldn't be any air bubbles coming out. And then I glued underneath the one side until it was pretty well flattened in place with a board, and then I did the other side, glued, and I was sort of spreading out the glue with a tiny little paintbrush that they recommended, which is one of the smallest trim brushes I had from the hardware store. And then when I inflated it, a funny thing happened. I was looking at it from the inside, and I saw this point where it was adhering, and that was the inside of the hull was adhering to the opposite side of the hull patch, and then it eventually popped loose as I was inflating it. So it actually worked out well. Now the company says small little punctures you can repair, but things like this you should be sending back to the company, and it starts at $75 for major repairs plus the round-trip shipping. Well, I was able to do this patch with what came with the Kayak, and now I'm going to order some more patches from the Kayak company. I'm back out on St. Joseph Sound. In a plan to retest the buoyancy of my repair, which looks good because the bottom is still well inflated. In the line of 6 islands, this one actually has a name apparently, which is Horseshoe Island. It's the second island. Right now I'm drifting just to the side of the first island in the line of 6. Ostensibly, this was supposed to be a calm day with winds from the north about 7 miles an hour, and I found it a fair amount of work to paddle and the waves already pretty choppy compared to a week ago when I thought this was a very calm day. So 7 miles per hour is not calm from a paddling standpoint or wave standpoint. Honeymoon Island starts right there, right after these condo or apartment buildings. To the right of that is the state park of Honeymoon Island. So I'm just circling this first island as my main activity for the kayak trip today. There's no way I would attempt a longer journey into this level of wind. It's already tough enough for this first island. There's not many boats out today, so all these waves I think are just wind generated. So these are just views of drifting in the kayak prior to return to shore. This is the Mangrove Island. A cormorant friend. So you might wonder why we got an inflatable kayak with all these storage racks. Well, they're all filled. So the condo association already has storage racks. However, they're all taken up, and we've been told the wait list expected time for an opening in the kayak rack could be years. So it's either rent a kayak every time we want to use one, or don't get a kayak, or get an inflatable. So that's what we're at.